7 of those sightings were harbour porpoises and 2 sightings were minke whales. Is there still time for some dolphins out there? It's still possible. I hope not now because you're all going running out, but it's still possible. And I hope you all got to see some of these. So we saw some of the toothed dolphins, Anodontocetes. So they're really the more predatory ones that go after maybe fish and other sea life. They may work as a group and corral the fish. We saw lots of feeding activity, particularly in the fjords. Sometimes we saw fish leaping out of the water, followed by a porpoise who was hunting them. So we got to see some of the toothed cetaceans. And this is the one that we had all those sightings of, the harbour porpoise. It's our smallest one. It only goes up to 1.5 meters. They're usually in groups of only up to 12. I think our biggest group was between 5 and 7. And they're mainly in little family pods, but in July they meet up into huge groups of up to 100 and socialize a lot more. They also calve and mate in July as well, so you see some really interesting behaviors out there, some big social behaviors. But lovely to see, I hope you agree. This is maybe more what you saw than that other footage I just showed you. So you can see in this top right-hand picture, just a tiny little dorsal fin there, very triangular, dark black fin, and then down below a little bit of a clearer picture. And then after this one, we saw the baleen whales. That was our second cetacean that we saw, and we saw the smallest of the baleen whales that we get around the UK, and that's the minke whale, and that's how they feed. So there's a little bit of footage of the minke whale for you to enjoy. We had 2 sightings of these. They were about 80 miles offshore of Newcastle. And it's an area that we've been picking up minke whales this summer. Minke whales can migrate 40,000 miles. A lot of the whales are moving into colder waters in the summer and then return into warmer waters in the winter. The cold waters hold a lot more food for them, and the warmer waters are good for calving and for mating. And this is maybe what you saw, something rolling over. And perhaps you saw this, a lot of seabirds feeding here. And then a really long whale that rolls over and takes a long time because it's up to 10 meters long. So fantastic sightings on the way over. So when we record this data, we can then look at the ship's transect route. That isn't an exact line of what we did, but it's a similar. And we can look at any coastal features. We can look at time of year, time of day even, which areas they're at, how many there are, what the animals they're associating with. And we can figure out really what is attracting these animals to this area, and also have an idea of the abundance and, of course, distribution of these animals in the areas that we survey. If we then repeat those kind of surveys, we can end up with information like this. And the black line shows an area, a shelf area. And you can see here from this information, which is long-term data, which is what we aim to collect. The areas of red are areas of high density of these animals, and then the darker blue areas are very low density. So you can see these animals are very attracted to the inshore shelf area, whereas these are found more offshore and off the shelf area. And this information is very important when we're thinking about protecting our oceans. And we're just getting together the legislation that we've had for the land, for the kind of reserves that we've had protecting animals on land, now for the sea. We had the Marine Act come in, and by 2012 there's going to be big areas of the sea protected, we hope. And hopefully those areas will join up, and maybe even join up in European waters, and maybe even international areas. And we can then have reserves and corridors where these animals are safe, and will hopefully be safe for the future, and maybe even increase, so we can see more of them on trips like this. So that's just something that I did with very short-term data. So we could look at the harbour porpoise sightings for this trip, and you can see the majority of them from this pie chart were in the fjords. Some were in the coastal areas, that's the really bright blue, and then a couple were at sea. So this is interesting for a number of reasons. The fjords have a lot of freshwater input, so they have a slightly different habitat. Then we have harbour porpoises at sea, But this is the North Sea, so it's a shallow sea, so we would expect that. And then we also have them in the coastal areas, so close to the coast.